Before we begin, please tap the subscribe button and the bell icon to get notified of the interesting videos we have for you every day. So this is the brand new iPhone 15 Pro Max in natural titanium. I just want to start this video off by saying if you have last year's phone and you're looking at these new devices and you're feeling some sadness, look, you're not missing a lot, okay? Doesn't matter if you're buying a brand new iPhone or a brand new Samsung phone. The year-over-year updates at this stage are very less, mainly when it is related to hardware. Most of changes are based on software. You're getting a lot of those features on your previous device. But look, the thing I observed when I picked this phone up was how it felt. It was a very comfortable device. I didn't like the 14 Pro Max the way it felt in the hand. It was heavy, and the edges of the device were sharp and rough. And I found like this was a device I just didn't like using without a case. I actually felt more comfortable with a case on. But these new edges have been smoothened. They're rounded off. And they just felt so much easy to hold. This year, the phone is a bit lighter, up to 19 grams. It's around 10%. Now we all know iPhone got USB Type-C this year. Great, if you are buying the Pro Max, it's gonna be a little bit faster, USB 3, 10 gigabits per second. I've been engaging in with it, okay? You can do some pretty cool stuff with it. Like for example, you can connect an external drive. In fact, your imagination can take you places with this because there's so many different items that you can connect to your phone. And that's kind of shocking. Usually Apple tends to lock their ports down, but they opened it up, which I'm quite amazed, right? Like this is something Apple usually doesn't do. So the fact that like I can connect an external drive and then you see it right here, I can go into it and you can see all the AirPods. You can reverse charge AirPods with Lightning, assuming the cord is Type-C to Lightning. But the one thing that I was really worried about was this new action button. I thought I wasn't going to like it. I always preferred the mute switch just because I wear an Apple Watch and I get all my notifications on it. But I'm actually liking this action button a lot. Now you can bind this to whatever you want. Like I have it connected to the flashlight. But if you go into the action button settings, Apple gives you a bunch of pre-set options, but you can get really creative with this and actually select a shortcut and connect pretty much to anything. Like I imagine a lot of people are probably going to bind it to the camera, but if you really want to, you can bind it to specific applications, a timer, a code scanner, anything you want can think up of. You can do it with the action button. But the sound quality on this phone is same as to the last year's 14 Pro Max. So there's no difference there. The display quality is also identical. They're still both 6.7-inch displays, 120 hertz, what Apple calls ProMotion. The brightness is pretty much almost identical. Like we're talking about 1600 nits of peak HDR brightness. If you go outdoors, that can go up to 2000 or above. And then if you're indoors, they're kind of the same. Like they usually sit around 800 to 1000 typical brightness if you're looking at these screens inside. The Face ID notch is still the same size as the previous model, the phone. But what is different is the chip that's inside the iPhone 15 Pro Max. It's using an A17 Pro. This is the first 3nm chip from Apple. And I did a couple of tests and it obviously is faster than the previous generation. It's quite remarkable because the A16 in last year's model is still much faster than a lot of Android phones that are currently on the market. So it's crazy to see an even faster chip right now. Now I've played some games on this. Like I didn't feel like my old phone was slow, but this new phone obviously handles them beautifully. Like if you're a mobile gamer, you're probably buying an iPhone anyways. But yes, it does heat up like the previous model. There is some throttling if you're playing games for a very long period of time, but I feel like you're still getting the best experience in terms of gaming when you're buying an actual iPhone. But the one thing that hasn't been great so far is the battery life. I know it's early, and I do want to give it more time because I want the battery to calibrate over a month rather than a few days, but I'm only getting 5 hours of screen on time. Answer. The other little hardware update is the UWB chip, the ultra-wideband chip. It's now in its second generation, and this opens up the capability of more precision finding, being able to precisely find another Apple device. Now, this only works currently with the Apple Watch Ultra 2 and the Apple Watch Series 9 because that also has the second generation U2. But one of the biggest updates are actually the camera. Not the camera hardware, but some of the new software they're incorporating with the iPhone 15 Pro Max. For one, the wide lens, the 48 megapixel wide lens is identical to last year's model. There's no difference there. The ultra wide camera is identical to last year's model. It's still 12 megapixels. The only difference in terms of hardware is the telephoto lens. The previous 14 Pro Max used a 3 times telephoto lens. This new version uses a 5 times lens. Now, there is some differences in the way the photos being created. So for one, the 14 Pro Max using the 48 megapixel lens would use a 12 megapixel photo. With the new 15 Pro Max, it's being done at 24 megapixels. Now, I honestly thought the photos would just be a lot bigger and take up a lot more space, but because it's using a very good codec to process the image, the file size is not that much bigger. Sometimes a megabyte, sometimes 2 megabytes, but it's not going to tear through your storage space. And before you go, please remember to subscribe to the channel right now and leave a like for that YouTube algorithm. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.